Every road you've went down, whether it be what we consider big or little, you know. And you know when you're not living as you should be living for God. And can I say again, if we're out of the will of God and we're not living exactly like we should for Him, isn't that not transgressing, going against God? And those outward dark places we view as gross sin. Those things are bad, but I believe, and I may mention this again in a moment, you don't get to that point until you've been dabbling in what we consider the little things. When you get that far, there's a lot of other things that's added up in your life. Those besetting sins that get us off track. Things we allow ourselves to overlook and even rationalize. You're looking at somebody that's guilty of this, and no doubt everyone here is. You try to rationalize, well, this is why I did it. This is why I thought it. This is why it was all right. It's because of this. We neglect the Lord and we're not in full submission and full obedience to it. I believe part of this besetting sins that'll put up that barrier before we know it is getting lazy spiritually, as I said a moment ago, and putting other things first before God. Now back to pride, when we try to reason out why we're okay, our pride will begin to compare ourselves to others. Everybody here, no doubt you're guilty of that. Well, I'm not as bad as they are. We think we're better than we are at times. I'm above that. It's okay for me. I can handle it. We start to get in our minds that what we're doing is just not sinful because we've justified it. But sin is still sin. And when it's not dealt with, we'll get to that in a moment, it causes issues. Proverbs 16 verse 5, everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. I'd love to go back and just look at that verse deeper, but I want to show you. It sickens. Abomination means it sickens God. That's what that means. To the point of, pardon me for might sounding gross, but vomiting. That type of sickness. It sickens God when we get to this point, letting our pride come before righteousness. This verse says, though hand join in hand. What is he saying there? He's saying it doesn't matter. Even if others agree with you. If there's a whole lot of people doing the same thing, it still sickens God when you fall into sin. It's still wrong. And that's your pride keeping you silent like David was. David kept silent, and there are some here today, no doubt that you're keeping silent of your shortcomings, of your sin, of your failures upon the Lord, and you're trying to ignore them. You're trying to say, well, I'm just going to get past it. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's okay for me. But let me tell you what it's going to do to you the longer you keep silent. David gives us detail of what unconfessed sin does to a person. He said his bones waxed old through his roaring. There was physical stress upon David from the conviction in his soul. His roaring, his crying out, his conviction, his guilt. The hand of God was heavy upon him, he says. See, if you're a child of God and you're dabbling in these things, whether you think they're big or little, the hand of God is going to get heavy upon you. It's going to eat at you. It's going to weaken you even to the point of physical weakness. He felt the weight of not being right with God, and it pressed upon him. I know what he's talking about. Does anybody else know? I've experienced that. He says his moisture was turned into the drought of summer. He felt empty. He was weakened as there was no fruit in his life. Everything had dried up in him. He was spiritual. Admit that we've messed up, that we've fallen short. We deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. And let me say this. You may think you're a strong